The most common question I get is, how can I build my book of business if I don't have any time? My name is Mo Bunnell, and I and my teams have trained about 60,000 high-end professionals all across the world, especially in law, consulting, all professional services, insurance, outsourcing, and there is a silver bullet to growing your book of business even if you are slammed, but it's not what you think. Just last week, I was training a group of about 25 high-end professionals. About half the people in the group grow their book of business through referrals that they get when somebody else meets somebody that needs their services. It's a bit episodic, and they have to go through referral sources to find the people that they need to meet. The other half can go directly to people that they want to meet. They know who needs to buy their services. The problem is, in both cases, to develop these relationships, they have to be proactive. And everything else in their world is trying to get in their way. Obviously, they have to deliver on the projects that have already been purchased, but they also have internal projects. They have mentoring. They have to interview laterals that might be coming into the organization. They've got all kinds of other things around practice management and things that they've got to do, technology they got to learn. Business development is the number one thing in their career, but it ends up being the bottom of their list of things that they're trying to do on nights and on weekends, and it just never gets done. Here's the problem. The human brain is wired to add, not subtract. So just think right now, how many meetings do you have a week or over a year that are set up to add something to your plate, where somebody says, hey, let's have a meeting. We got to do the new thing. We got to get ready for the conference. We've got to introduce this new solution that we've got to a bunch of clients. We need to run a campaign. We need to do this. We need to do that. Well, it's probably almost every meeting. Now think, how many meetings in the last week or year have you had where somebody emailed you and said, hey, let's figure out the things we're not going to do? Well, if you're like me, it's probably no meetings. So all the research is lined up around how human beings love to add but not subtract. My favorite researcher here is Leidy Klotz. He's written a fantastic book on this exact topic. And in countless studies, he found that we tend to add but not subtract. So you need a trigger. You need a reason. You need a prompt to remind you to subtract things. Otherwise, you're going to always add things to your plate, not take anything away. And what that means is the proactive things, even though it's important, gets pushed to the bottom of your to-do list. So here's the silver bullet. And in a moment, I'm going to teach you exactly how to do it in a stepwise process. But first, you need a metaphor. Think of your time like a ladder. And if you want to climb that ladder, you have to cut something off the bottom. I think of each rung of the ladder like a new level of impact. If I personally want to rise up to a new level of impact, if I want to climb up, if I want to grab that next rung of the ladder, my bottom foot has got to step off something or I'm not going to be able to climb. In our metaphor, the ladder is time. If you want the higher value thing up above, you've got to let go of the lower value thing on the bottom. Okay, before we get into the stepwise process, there's one more thing to cover. What's high value and what's low value? A lot of people get gummed up here because they feel like everything's important. Well, I'm telling you, not everything is of equal importance. One of the things we do in our full GrowBIG training is we have people calculate something called a GrowBIG Index. And it's super simple. All you do is you take two numbers and you divide them to get your GrowBIG Index. The numerator, the top number, is how much money did you bring in or help influence to bring in for your firm in the last year? Come up with that number. Estimate it if you need to. And then you divide it by the number of hours you spent on relationship development or business development. In other words, how much time did you spend bringing that money in? Well, a GrowBIG Index usually is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times higher than an average hourly billable rate if you've got it. And the problem is most people think of their value as what they provide in delivery, but they don't realize that the value that they have in the marketplace bringing in work typically is 10 to 50 times higher than that. In the class I was in last week, most people were probably the average was around $10,000 an hour, where their billable rates were at $800 or $1,000 an hour. So $10,000 an hour value bringing money in, bringing business in, versus 1/10 that delivering on the business after it's brought in. So one of the things you can do is think, what is my value out in the marketplace bringing in business? And I guarantee it's probably a lot higher than you think. What you can do once you know that number is you can evaluate all the other things you're doing and saying, hey, is that choice I'm making, is that thing I'm being asked to do, is it worth $12,000 an hour if that's my GrowBIG Index? And I guarantee you're going to find things that are much less valuable than that. Those are the things you're going to let go of. Those are the things that you're going to take that foot off of the bottom of the ladder so that you can climb up to your next rung of impact and find time to do more relationship and business development. So here's a simple 3-step process that you can go through to figure out what to cut and how much time that's going to be worth that you can get rid of so that you can climb up to your next level of impact. Step 1, pull out a scrap piece of paper, put 2 columns on it. One says activity, and the second column says hours saved. Set a timer for 3 minutes. Now you're ready for step 2. Hit that timer, and as fast as possible, write down as many activities as you can think of that are less valuable than the proactive relationship development and business development activities that you've wanted to do, and estimate. You don't have to be precise, just estimate the total number of hours saved per year for each activity that you list out. When the timer goes off at the end of 3 minutes, you're done, but add up the total number of hours saved. What's really cool, in the class I was in just last week, almost everybody in that class found at least 50 hours to be saved. That's a big number. A couple people found 500 hours that they can save. Meetings they don't need to be in, all kinds of activities that were not as good as their GrowBIG Index implied for business development and relationship development. But you're not done yet. Here's step 3. As you look at each activity, I want you to evaluate it from 3 levels. Number 1, which of these can you just completely eliminate? Maybe there's been pursuits that just aren't going to pay off as you think about it, or conferences you've gone to that take multiple days, and just as you really reflect, it's just not going to really pay off. This is just delete. You're not going to do that activity anymore. It goes to 0. Tons of hours saved. If something still needs to be done, there's a second option. Delegate. Delegate takes a little bit of time up front. You might have to train somebody else, but it saves massive amount of times later. So only for the things that remain do you delegate. For those things that you can delegate, a third option is automate. How can you use technology, AI, other tools to make that activity that does need to remain? How can you make it as fast as possible? And if you go through that 3-arc structure, exactly in that order, eliminate, only those things that remain get delegated, only those things that remain get automated, that is how you're going to free up a ton of time and take as many things off of this list as possible and truly cut to climb. Here's what I want you to remember from this video. As you continue to climb, you need to continue to cut. And the reason is your relationship ecosystem is going to get stronger. Every individual relationship is going to get stronger. Your ability to bring in business and impact the world in a significant way is going to get bolder. So to continue to build on that momentum that you've got, you have to continue to cut. After you've reclaimed 50 to 500 hours in your life, what I want you to do next is think about a very simple 15 minutes a week system that'll get you proactive, on your front foot, and deepening relationships every single week. I cover that in this next video.